busy with the story about the divorce, or you're busy with the sand scene, and maybe the child has just expressed or built out in the sandbox the extreme conflict that happens in the house as a war. And the child then starts breaking contact and ask, what else are we going to do today? Or maybe the child say, I don't want to play this. And what you will do then is move to a safer activity and say, okay, but let's have some balloon tennis, or maybe we can spend the last 5 minutes playing cricket. So you have to move to a more safe activity to restore the contact, and then you can move back to a more threatening thing, maybe not in that session, but only later, depending on how difficult it is to re-establish contact. All right, the next one, the sixth one, we're almost done with this, is called desensitization. Now, desensitization we are quite familiar with, because that is what we do if you run the comrades and they develop a blister in your foot and you can't stop running. So you have to desensitize your body from feeling the burning and pain in your foot. So in a sense, it is a sensory cut off from whatever you need to experience. Cut off the senses and don't feel that. And that can be with reference to any of the 5 senses, that we have. So it might be that I don't want to hear what I need to hear. Maybe my parents are shouting at each other in the house and I don't want to hear that. So it can also be that I don't want to see what I need to see. Sometimes children that are frequently hospitalized and are very familiar with the smell of the hospital. To smell might mean to experience or re-experience the pain that I had in the hospital, so I don't want to smell. And then with reference to the touch sensory function, is that we see with abused children that are often totally numb in their own senses, so they will fall and the blood might run and they don't cry. And the reason for that is like to feel to feel the abuse. So they literally numb their body towards that. And sometimes it can also then happen that a specific taste can remind you of something painful. So in a sense, what we say is the senses are building the bridge from the outside world to the inside world, because that's the way in which the brain gets the message from the outside world. And if we cut off that message, we also cut off the emotion that goes with that message, and I don't have to feel. And that is why in the gestalt play therapy process, there's a whole phase of sensory contact making and body contact making to restore that, because if there's no sensory and body contact making, the child will not be able to come into contact with the painful emotions that is stored here in the unconscious. Okay, that is desensitization. And then the last one here is called egotism. So egotism is literally where a child will be willing to consider something in their head, but not to feel that. So emotional, literally a cut off from the emotion. As we say, the longest journey is from the head to the heart. So there's a cut off, and that will be a child that maybe after a few sessions will tell you that you're busy with baby stuff and they don't want to play anymore. Or maybe if you ask a child to imagine a monster in their life just as a projection, that in a fantasy, the child will say, well, my dad say there's no real monsters. So it will be, you get that more with boys, but it is making use of a contact boundary disturbance that will mean that you only live in your head, and you don't feel what is in your head, and you cut that off, and you have an objective, rational awareness of the experience, but not a subjective or an emotional experience. In other words, you are not emotionally in contact, and then you will see, this will often be children that's also very rigid and that's very cognitive and that have no fun in their life. No, there's not a spontaneous interaction that can take place. Right, the next concept here that I want to discuss is the concept of polarities. And polarities just refer to the fact that everything like love and hate, or good child, bad child, or friendship or hostility, we work a lot with polarities in therapy. In other words, if you ask a child to make a drawing of the family, of his or her family, and you ask how does his member feel most of the time, and the child give a quick happy face for everyone. Working the polarity would literally mean to ask a child in a very gentle voice, can you think of one time when your dad was not happy, or your mom? So it might mean that in the sandbox, the child builds out an extremely serene scene where the child actually, that's the opposite of what's going on in the child's house. And you might ask the child, let's see if you can build a story that's the opposite of this one. Or if the child builds out a very scary or sad scene, you can also ask the child to build a story how would it look when it is better. So one of the aims of gestalt life therapy is to integrate polarities, polarities in terms of the different parts in the child's self, but also the possibility to see that in every good there's bad, and in every bad there's also good. Maybe the child say only negative things about a stepmother, for example, and you would ask the child, can you think of one positive thing about your stepmother, or one positive thing that she sometimes does for you? So that would be to work in the polarity. Now, also the whole thing of ambivalent emotions, where you can help the child in a concrete way to understand that I can have love and feel hate towards the same person, because that can be extremely confusing and conflicting to children. So therefore we also work with that. The last part that we're going to address now is the structure of the personality in gestalt life therapy. And to do that, I'm going to make use of a drawing again, which is a spiral, to make you see that there are different layers in the personality. Now, so we literally call this the structure of the personality. And in gestalt life therapy, what will happen is that we will move from the outside layer to the inside in every unfinished circle that we work with in therapy with. In other words, with every incomplete aspect in the child's life. Maybe I haven't mourned that my dad has died, or maybe I haven't mourned the divorce of my parents, or whatever. Every time we work with an incomplete circle, we will go through this layer. So what are the layers? The outside layer is called the false layer, or the phony layer. And the false layer is the layer of the roles. In other words, the mask that I carry, the persona that I've earlier explained. So when a child comes into the play therapy room in the first time, they will wear the role that they normally wear at home, or maybe at school. So I'm the clown, or I'm the very serious one, or I'm the one that make jokes of everything. And you will, every client has, like Carl Jung said, has a secret. So in a sense, we will carry that persona, or this mask, maybe for a few sessions, because one layer does not imply one session. It can take 6 months to move through this, or we can move in one session through that. But the false layer is the layer of roles. In other words, not who I truly am, but the role that I play in terms of what other people expect me to be. They expect me to be the pleaser, or to be the accommodator. Or sometimes a parent will say, this is my easy child, or this is my difficult child, or this is my whatever the wrong, this is my clever child. So it's literally the you should messages that a child gets from the outside world. The top dog, you should, in this home you should be like this or that. Now, and younger children's ability to be aware of the conflict between the top dog, in other words, what the environment expects, and the underdog, top dog you should, and underdog I want, is very limited in terms of the developmental level now. And that is why they also struggle to understand ambivalent emotions. The next layer is called the phobic layer. Okay, so that was the false layer. Here's the phobic layer. The phobic layer is literally phobia, means to be scared. We talk of phobics. You has a phobia of this or that. So the phobic layer is starts developing as a child, or a client becomes aware of the roles that they play. So as soon as I become aware of my games and of my mask, then I feel anxious. And the reason for that is that if you as a therapist see a part of my pain, or see me how I truly am, will you still accept me? Now, so in a sense, that is why it makes anxious, is maybe the child client has shared something very painful or very confidential with you in the therapy room that they've never shared with anyone else ever. And that is something that really frequently happens as the therapeutic relationship is established. Especially if the child grows up in an environment where they are really never allowed to speak up, or where they are punished. If once I've developed secure therapeutic relationship, the child will start sharing with you very vulnerable stuff, maybe about their own inferiority or their own shame or pain or stuff that they've done. And then after that, the child might feel very anxious, even anxious to come back to a next session, because literally what will this therapy do with what I've shared? Okay, so after that we get a next layer, and the next layer is called the impasse layer. And the impasse layer, another word for that is also the layer of resistance. In other words, this is the layer where the child is aware of the problem. In other words, I have to mourn about my granny that died, or I have to mourn about my parents' divorce, or I have to learn to deal with bullies at school, or I have to handle my anger. But the child does not have the capacity to solve the problem. So the child is aware of the problem but needs external support. So someone else must fix this problem for me. And just for sake of interest, this is often the phase where adults quit therapy because they, if you don't solve my marriage problem or my financial problems as a therapist, I'm going to someone else because that is why I come. I want to draw you a picture of how resistance looks in therapy. If we can explain it as a wall of resistance, a wall of bricks. So when the resistance comes, you as a therapist and the client is here, and the new growth area that the client has to grow to is here. Now beyond the wall of bricks and the wall of resistance. So let's call this the wall of resistance. So when the resistance comes, I've just explained, is when I want to grow but I'm not strong enough, so I'm looking towards a therapist to solve this. But how would we see this resistance in therapy? A child will have resistance to come, they don't want to come. I recently had a child who would hide from the parents when they have to drive to the therapy room, the child is gone. You know, like, or the child refused to climb out of the car when they reach the practice. Now, resistance can come in all ways. But what literally needs to happen is we have to expect and respect resistance as part of the structure of the personality. It is a healthy thing because it implies the child have at least a part of a sense of self. And therefore, resistance is just part of a phase. We have to expect that, and we have to be next to the child. And I find that the simple thing to say to a child, I can really see that you don't want to be here now, and I can understand that, and I'm so proud of you that you're here, can often give that permission that I can have this resistance. And then what we literally have to do is to find a door in the wall of resistance. And once that door opens, we move to new growth areas, and the child will just quickly start to grow to something else. So we cannot say if the resistance will go on for 1 session or 2 or 3, but we need to try to establish a relationship in such a way that even if there's resistance, the child will come back, because now we're going to look at the next layer after the impasse. Is called the implosive layer. And the implosive layer is a layer where I'm not resistant anymore, and I do accept that this is my responsibility and I have to change something. I have to make friends, or I have to learn to handle the bully, or I have to learn how to ask my parents for what I need, whatever the case. But there's an interesting, what they call catatonic paralysis. In other words, I have to do this, but I don't have the energy. I'm too tired. And I think as adults, sometimes we all know that feeling of I have to do something new, but I don't have the energy. Maybe I have to go on a diet, but I will do that on the 2nd of January. Or I have to start practicing, but it's too cold. I will start tomorrow. Or whatever the case is. Now, you know what you have to do, and you take the responsibility, so you don't project it on anyone else. You don't reflect it back on your own body, but you are too tired. So that, and what is interesting is that is before, that is the phase, just before the phase where we suddenly have new energy. So also be patient with that phase, because it means we're almost there. And then the last layer is called the explosive layer. And the explosive layer is the layer where the child suddenly can come into contact with the emotion. There's no more resistance. They can experiment with new behavior. So maybe the child will run to you and say, I've made 3 new friends this week. Or suddenly the child's very, very happy at school, whereas there was a lot of work that you had to do with that, and the child many times say they hate school. Or maybe stuff at home is just very much better. So what you will sense in the explosive layer is an enormous amount of psychic energy that comes loose, because the child doesn't have to make use of defense mechanisms and contact boundary disturbances. The child can openly talk about their pain, they can openly experiment with new behavior, and they can accept different emotions. And normally when we're in the explosive layer, it literally means that the incomplete gestalt around the specific aspects, maybe the divorce or the bullying, whatever, is complete and will move to the background. And either in therapy we can move to a new incomplete circle, or we can terminate therapy, and maybe it will be a time in 2 years' time, whatever, to work on that aspect. So this structure of the personality, from the false, phony, impulse, implosive and explosive layer, we go through with each incomplete circle. Thank you. That's it.